So let's begin. And I always begin by introducing our guest panelists. I could spend a lot of time with their introductions, so I hope they will bear with me and you will understand if I give them a little too brief an introduction. I'll start with Margaret Selby. Margaret manages the careers of major choreographers, dance companies, and theatrical events, having built a successful artist management division from the ground up, drawing upon a lifelong passion for dance, theatre, music, and film, and an in-depth working knowledge of creative development and performance. Margaret has a keen eye on today's performance landscape and a keen appreciation of the care needed for live performance to thrive as we head further into the century. Erwin Maas is a New York-based theatre maker, educator, and international arts advocate from the Netherlands. He's worked extensively in Australia, Europe, South Africa, South Korea, as well as the USA. And in New York, he directs numerous productions off-Broadway, off-Broadway, as well as site-specific. And is the co-founding director of the Pan-African Creative Exchange, artistic associate and director of the fellowship program for IPAY. And between 2016 and 2020, he was the artistic creative director of the International Society for Performing Arts. And between 2010 and 2014, director of the Performing Arts for the Cultural Department of the Royal Netherlands Embassy and Consulates in the USA. And then we have Juan José Escalante, executive director of the José Limón Dance Foundation, and came to José Limón Dance Foundation with an impressive nonprofit management background from New York City Ballet, Miami City Ballet, and Ballet Florida, where he served as executive director. He has chaired the National Committee for Small and Medium Companies for Dance USA and the Cultural Executive Committees for the Palm Beach County Cultural Council, and currently serves on the board of Dance NYC. But to kick us off, Seth Soloway, director of the Performing Arts Center, who I know you probably all know and needs no introduction. So as I go to let some people in, I hand over to you, Seth. And
thanks, Ian. You continue to be too kind to me, and of course I'll pay you later. Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone again. As Ian said, if we haven't met, my name is Seth. I'm the director of the Performing Arts Center here at Purchase College, or not here at Purchase College today, since I'm in my home. For those of you who have watched recently, Ian and I had taken to being in the theater with the help of our wonderful technical team. But as we're wrapping out the year and this segment of our coffee hour conversations, it seemed appropriate to bookend things by being back in our homes. So we're both in our homes. I want to say right away, if you see either of us looking down, it is because we stage manage the event by texting each other little notes when we need to. So please don't mind that. And today is really a big reflection. As I said, when we started these, and as we always say, this wasn't meant to be a webinar. We really wanted to bring friends together and have a conversation over coffee as we would if times were normal. And of course, right now would be a big time for many of us to gather over coffee and other exciting beverages. And then we would have had APAP coming up and IPAY coming up and all of those times to look forward to. So we want to try to replicate that feeling as best as we can. I've got my coffee, and we just want to have a chat. And I want to start our reflection by saying that it's a great moment just to exhale. I was taught to hate the idea or the expression killing time. My father always says, don't kill time because none of us knows how much we have. But I'm going to eschew his advice just this once and just say, I think we can all just exalt in how wonderful it is to hear Ian say the last of 2020. There are many things about 2020 that we can so that was exciting to hear, and that was really the idea today with this conversation. We want to have more of a conversation than ever. We thought about where this started when we knew very, very little, and where we are now, where maybe we don't know that much more, but we've been doing this for quite a long time now. So we thought it was appropriate to bring together a group of sort of our greatest hits list in terms of our moderators, a group of people who have been with us through the various phases of these conversations. Juan José was kind enough to volunteer to be on the very first one back in September, when we really didn't know what to say or what to think, and we just said, well, we don't even know what this is about. Let's just get together and have a conversation. Margaret joined us about midway through when we discussed the role and the challenges of an agent during these challenging times. And Erwin was with us quite recently to talk about art making in the virtual age. So we decided to bring these three folks together so that we could offer a wide perspective and have a conversation. So we're gonna have a chat for about half an hour, and then this is going to all get different. Ian's going to put us in some breakout rooms so we can continue our conversations in smaller groups and make some notes and bring some observations back to the table at the end. And what we really want to do here is just talk about what we learned, what worked and what hasn't worked, and how can we get better. The title for today was Taking Stock, Reviewing the Lessons of 2020 and Planning for a New Year. So I'm going to skip past, again, I think we all know each other, so I'm not going to ask each of our panelists to do a lengthy intro, but we're just going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask each of you, and I think we'll go in order of history. So I'm going to start with Juan José. And as we discussed when we prepared, I'm going to ask you to provide us with a provocation or a reflection that helps us prompt the conversation. So I'm going to ask you really quite simply, what have you learned from being a performing arts practitioner during the COVID-19 pandemic? What's worked that you can reflect on? What hasn't worked that you can reflect on? Is there a challenge or a provocation you can give us? What might we do differently as we move into 2021?
Wow. Well, thank you for having me, Seth. And if there is a loaded question, that will be it.
I have faith in you.
Well, it's not just what we have learned; it's what we keep learning. If 2020 has been, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I've never seen anything like this. It has been like the great equalizer in a sense that it has forced us to take our business plan and just throw it out the window, because nothing else that we planned for many, many years, it's applicable anymore. We at the Limón Foundation, we're celebrating 75 years next year, which we have been working on for about 3 years, putting together that celebration. It was supposed to start with a performance at Jacob's Pillow this past summer, and go on for a couple of years. So all of that is out the window. We, just like everybody else, we got shut down on March 13th, that Friday. But the following week, we started, putting virtual content out there, and quickly realized that we have a worldwide audience. That free class that we do every day at 3 p.m., it's up for about 24 hours. So people from around the world are taking the class on an average of about 500 people. But at the same time, we have been able to see some donations that have come in because of that. And I mentioned to you guys before that one of the best gift that we got came in the form of $1,000 donation from a doctor in Baltimore. And the comment that she made with that donation was that, thank you so much for the class. I take it every day, every morning before I head out to the ER. And that's how I get my mind and my body ready, for what the day brings. So the arts have played a big part of this pandemic and keeping people sane. And I'm glad that we have so many creative people that are on our team that keep putting stuff like that together. We are constantly creating content, whether it's for the Limón for Kids program that we do with the public schools. As you know, arts and education budget got cut big time. So we provide that for free anyway. So there's a lot of things that we were doing that we were put in a position to figure out a different way of delivering that because of this pandemic. And even when things go back to some kind of normal, now we have an audience that is paying attention to Limón specifically, that is worldwide. So we have to find a way to keep providing this kind of service to them, even when we're back in the studios. So that will be my takeaway with this thing, that we really had to reinvent ourselves. Unfortunately, those organizations that are not willing to be flexible that are not willing to evolve with this, probably not going to make it through the end of this tunnel. You know, I already seen a few of my colleagues that are closing shops, and it is in a large extent because of that. So.
Thanks very much, Juan Jose. So before we move on to the next speaker, I think, you know, based on what you said, my provocation for you, Juan Jose, and for anyone who's in your breakout group as we continue the conversation would be, so, you know, I think it's amazing that actually the pandemic and the use of Zoom has given the company such a different kind of reach nationally and internationally. I think one of the challenges that we've always known and see now is, you know, we're all like, you know, different parts of a chamber of the heart for this agent business to work, right? And there's companies and artists, and there's presenters, and there's agents, and there's arts councils, and I'm forgetting things, and we all have a different role to play. So what's interesting, you know, when I think about our work is, so now Limón has this different kind of reach because of Zoom, and that's great for the company. I myself as a presenter, you know, still have to stay in my market and focus on my market. So how does this new resource that Limón has uncovered as a company maybe help us all work together to come back? How can a presenter in a local market, you know, help you harness that for the benefit of everyone? Not to answer now, but something to think about that I think will be a great conversation in the breakout room as we go forward. And I'm sure others, particularly I think presenters on the call, are probably having similar thoughts. So that said, Margaret, same question to you. I can repeat it if you want. You're muted.
There we go. Okay, can you repeat it, Seth? I'm sorry, I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. So what we're looking for is a reflection from you, a provocation, or even a challenge for the group to consider as you reflect on the last 6 months. What have you learned from playing your role in the arts during the COVID-19 pandemic? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What might we do differently as we enter the new year?
Right. Well, there's been a big learning curve. And I think the first thing that we learned as a company, you know, we had to go get the PPP and EIDL loan. We actually got the New York City small business loan, which is, you know, it's wonderful. It all has to get, well, everything but the PPP has to get paid back. And then it was really helping our companies get a PPP, which was really necessary. And I think everybody got one. And a few of them got the EIDL. One of the most wonderful things about being a New York company is the foundation stepped up amazingly. I have to say, with the New York Community Trust, some of the other big foundations gave money and gave emergency grants, the NEA. You know, Mellon is doing these incredible bubble residencies, and 3 of my companies who have not worked together in 10 months are being allowed to rehearse. Alonzo King is doing it in Arizona because California isn't open. They can't rehearse there. Dorrance is up at Jacob's Pillow, and Camille A. Brown is going up to Chatham. And then the one company that really has been unbelievable is Parsons Dance. They raised money to have the dancers in bubbles for 15 weeks. So they have lived together, rehearsed together outside of New York. And they actually did a live performance on November 20th at Dallas at the Opera House, where we worked day and night to come up with the protocol to make that possible. And I'm proud to announce nobody got sick. And they did an incredible show. And they're going to do another show at the end of January in Florida. So they have their board, they've just been committed to keeping the company working together. And the company has really loved it. They've done creations and all kinds of things. So, you know, it really is a partnership. with all of you, the places that are housing these people, the foundations that are supporting it. So I think that's been a plus. Regarding streaming, some of them have done some streaming. I have a little bit of problems with some of the streaming because I'm worried. I don't want theaters to end up like movie theaters. And, we really, as soon as we can switch gears and start campaigning on See It Live, I think we all need to do that, because the only way we're going to survive is if an economic model works. And, there's no new way if there isn't enough money so people can make a living wage. There just isn't. Artists give so much, but at the end of the day, they have to pay their rent and eat too. And I am really fighting for artist rights. We dealt with massive cancellations. I've probably rebooked some dates with my artists 4 times already. We kept pushing it a little later, then a little later, then a little later. And our company hasn't had real income in 10 months. And I still have my staff and I still have my office. And so it hasn't been easy, but, we're in it together. And I think we all have to focus back on, in 6 months from now, I hope we're going to be doing stuff in live performance, because the economics otherwise don't work.
Margaret, so quickly, because I think it's an easy answer, but there's a question in the chat from Isabel about whether or not you had audiences at those performances in Florida.
No, it was Dallas, and they did it socially distanced. They could have up to 600 people. They ended up having like around 475 in the audience, socially distanced. Yep. And in Florida, they will have socially distanced audiences. And we did not stream Dallas, nor will we stream Florida.
So, Margaret, I think something for what I'd ask you to think about as we go into the breakout rooms is sort of a send up back from the original conversation that you were on, which is just, everything that you're saying is important. You have a lot of information that I think, if we all know, we can proceed appropriately. So, I think I'm drawn back to this thought of, how are there ways we can be helping that we're not thinking of, in terms of, we have our theaters, we feel a little bit more comfortable perhaps just bringing the artists in. Are there things around, helping build these bubbles that we can be doing? I think comments like that from you would be helpful.
We're going to tell you the bubbles cost a fortune.
Yeah, I'm just imagining.
Because the COVID testing costs a fortune, and the amount of testing you need to do. But I do think anyone that can open their theater, and even if it's just work light and letting an artist rehearse on the stage. I mean, I spoke to Alonzo last night, and he was like, oh my God, to be back, and not just in a rehearsal room, but he's on a stage in Wickenburg, Arizona, creating, is amazing. So, the theaters can help that way. I think, I think it's a case by case. I don't think anything is one size fits all. I think this is all about who the artist is, who the presenter is, where they're located, what they think that, what can be accomplished. So it's worthwhile to do. So anyway, that's what I think of all that.
So Erwin, same question to you. And again, I can repeat it if that's helpful.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I can definitely, as an independent artist, I can definitely vouch for what Margaret is saying. It's so nice to be in a space outside of a small screen, computer screen. So yes, if spaces are available, artists pretty much just need space. That's it. If they have a space, they go. And I was very fortunate to create in an abandoned dairy factory in Norway remotely. I was here in New York. They were there creating a show, a socially distant show for 50 audience members at a time when it was still allowed there. So that was so exciting outside of all the virtual stuff. As a creator, I think Yes, money is a big problem, but I would like to focus more on some of the other things that have really struck me. And as Juan was saying, the healthcare workers are really the professionals for the body, but I really felt that we are the professionals for the soul. And if anything has become obvious in the pandemic is that the arts actually in a lot of ways thrived. I think more people have been engaging with arts. May it also be Netflix, but generally more people have been engaging with arts than ever before in a way. And I think that is something to really look at too as well. But at the same time, we got to watch out that though we all are in the same storm, we're not in the same boat. And that is even more so when I look internationally. I've actually been quite fortunate and interestingly been working more internationally this year on projects. And I think that is partly because from a producing standpoint, I found a lot of the unions woefully inflexible and unprepared for something like this. We are still waiting for the Actors Equity Union to figure out how radio plays can be done. I mean, and we're now 8 months further and they still have not figured out how to do that. You're not allowed to do it officially unless you pay huge amounts of money. So that has been really quite stunning to me. But at the same time, I do think that we all have become more or forced to become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, particularly in the artist field. I feel a lot of artists have really been doing much more experimental works, much more looking at how to get out of this. And that is a sense of uncomfortableness. And I think it's really good. And I'm actually questioning how can we as an entire field become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and with that then also our audiences. Looking forward, I would say that the sense of hybridity between the virtual and the live is something that I don't think will go away anymore, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the virtual has really shown us to create an accessibility that wasn't there before. And in a way, also looking at equality and inclusion, that has become quite a big part of this year, obviously also just because of other ventures that happened outside of the arts. But with regards to the virtual space, that in and of itself has opened up an inclusion and equity with accessibility matters. And also with looking at aesthetics. There's a different look in aesthetics even because we have gotten used to certain things. Now, I'm not saying that that is all perfect, but to even raise the questions about aesthetics. And again, I work a lot internationally and I work a lot in Africa and South America. And the questions there about the Eurocentrism of a lot of the arts that was presented, that has really quite broken down this year. Is very interesting, these conversations that are happening. And I think that is all kind of exciting. I think the last thing I'll say with regards to moving forward, I also hope very much that we'll go back to the live sessions, but I do think that after being away for so long and after not having been able to connect with each other, not just artists, but people, audiences, I think we're very much looking, as artists also very much looking more into the participation, interaction parts. This was of course already happening before the pandemic. Let's face it, the industry was already kind of in a crisis before the pandemic, and things have just been accelerated through the pandemic. And one of those accelerations, I think, is our look with connection to audiences. How do we connect to audiences as artists, as organizations? And I think coming back, maybe it's not only the stories we tell on stage that people are really interested in, but I would say a lot of interest is also in connecting with each other. How can we create some sort of interaction or some sort of coming together, the art of gathering as a group, as a people together again? I think will be very much at the forefront when coming back or going forward.
Thanks very much, Erwin. That's all well said. So, I think as we move into the breakout rooms, something that seems consistent in the statements is, we have a wide range of constituents on the chat today. And whether you prefer, my metaphor about the chambers of the heart or Erwin's about the boats, and we could take a vote, but there's a theme. There's a theme there, and it's this theme of what can each of us do as we go forward? How can we plan so that the next 6 months and beyond are better than the last? So I think with those themes in mind, I'm going to bring Ian back, and he is going to explain the today's twist for what we're going to do next.
Yes, so we're going to assign everybody into breakout rooms so we can reflect in individual groups on some of these ideas. So you'll have approximately 20 minutes in each breakout group to bat around and share your personal thoughts on the questions that we're talking about, or the comments and ideas already mentioned by our guest moderators. And I'll put those questions in the chat for you in just a moment. Seth, Margaret, Juan, José, and Erwin will all join different groups, so feel free to continue your conversations with them individually if you find them in your group. But we're aiming to keep the groups quite small to allow for easy and organic conversation. We hope that each group will nominate a note taker who will jot down ideas or questions that arise in each room. And when we return, we'll take a short pause and allow each group to post some thoughts or ideas or prompts in the chat to spark the final part of our discussion when we return. And don't worry, if you're not the note taker, or if anyone is welcome to post any ideas or thoughts or spark any conversation when they return. If you have any questions or you experience any technical issues as we transition to the groups, just come back to me. I'm going to stay here the whole time. So you can always come back and ask me a question and go back to your group if you choose to do that. So I'm just going to take, these are the questions that we posed around the whole conversation this morning, but obviously there's been a lot of talk about these further today. And if everybody's okay, if you have any questions, does anybody have any questions before I move you into breakout rooms? No? Okay, so I'll be here if you need me, and we'll see you in a few minutes. I think we get, Seth, if you're ready, we can invite everybody back, and we can see we have notes here in the chat, and we can take it from there. So thanks so much for being willing to be part of these breakout rooms, and I look forward to the rest of the conversation. Over to you, Seth.
So I'm looking at the comments from the groups, and I see first Mike's report. So Mike, would you be willing to maybe open that up for the group?
Sure. Yeah, it was nice that we're just three of us in the call, and I knew that the two women who were part of it, but we didn't have to go with introductions. Yeah, I put a lot of it in there. We talked about the big thing seemed to be the increased appreciation for how the PAC world works as an ecosystem, and that we all, well, at least my experience especially has been, we're really working together. There's no sense anymore of being on opposite sides of a table. If we have a problem, we have to solve it together. And so there's no more like positioning in terms of trying to negotiate to some kind of advantage. And that seems to be something that we're going to take forward with us, which is very encouraging. We talked a lot about live streaming and having some success, and a lot of it has to do with really trying to work with where there's already an existing relationship between the artist and the audience, and the artist and the presenter, and the presenter and the audience. When you have all that kind of stuff, then the shows tend to be more successful. And a big part of what we're all seeing is building in as much interactivity into the live stream process as what people seem to respond to. So there was a little bit more, but those are the biggest parts of it, I think, that we talked about.
Yeah, so I wonder if anybody, we've heard a lot about that too from our audience in terms of building interactivity into the virtual the virtual content. I wonder if there's any reflection that anybody has of a good example or a success story. Great, because I was going to go to you next.
Well, I mean, on the creative side, there's two versions on the creative side and also on the platform side of sorts. So I've been definitely seeing some amazing stuff done through artists, not just by interaction of a breakout room, but also using of Miro boards or, you know, so it's really different platforms that you're using where audiences really get interactive. And a Miro board is basically where you can draw and write on, but everybody together at the same time, for those that might not know it. And that has been used in I've seen fantastic performances using that and really immediately react to that as a creative source. With the Pan-African Creative Exchange, a sort of platform, if you will, like ISPA or iPay, we also looked at different platforms not outside of Zoom. And there was a new platform coming out of India, actually, called AirMeet. And AirMeet works very similarly to Zoom, except that in Zoom, we as an audience don't have the choice of who we talk to. So it's always the host that puts us in breakout rooms. Whereas in an AirMeet is almost like a real virtual gathering place where you pick on what table you sit and you only see the people at that table. But if somebody stands on the stage, then all the tables see the person on the stage. So it is a much more interactive way of communicating with each other. And then, of course, we also have the gaming industry that is now really looked at. I mean, I remember in April during the pandemic where there were funerals being held in Fortnite. Because people actually felt more connected as an avatar in a game industry world than on Zoom, which is very strange. But I mean, there is something to be said to it. So the gaming industry, of course, is far advanced when it comes to virtual experiences for audiences. And so, yeah, so there's definitely a lot going on with regards to interaction in that sense. That is exciting also.
Thanks, Erwin. And moving us forward, what about your group?
So I was with Carlotta and Juan, and we had a lovely conversation. And some of the things that came out, Juan being from the Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation, it's interesting to have a funder, a grant giver, and one of the things that was discussed was really interesting to me to hear that the need for a resilience program built in to your business model, that the pandemic has really laid bare how everything fell apart quite quickly and how most organizations were completely unprepared for something like this. And not that we are anticipating, you know, something like this all the time, but the need for a resilience program building into your business model was something that came up and that grant givers might look towards in the future more. Looking also at the pandemic as a great equalizer and really questioning everything, radically reimagining was what was mentioned. Sorry, and Carlotta was talking about similarly to what Juan was talking about, expansion of audiences, where she mentioned particularly her teaching artists that did some amazing work. That we might not always think about immediately. We're talking a lot about the agents and the presenters and the artists, but then there's these teaching artists that are doing a lot of community outreach and classes virtually that have been incredibly successful, she said, and that is something that they will continue doing going forward in a virtual sense. Whereas before it was just live in New York, now they reached national audience, so to speak. With these classes and building their audiences that way. So that was really nice to hear.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. So I want to probe a little, and again, you know, this is open. Anybody can dive in, ask a question, make a comment by all means. But this point about building resiliency, Erwin, that you made, we've we've heard a lot. I wonder if someone from the group, you or really anyone, you know, has a thought about, you know, what does that look like? How do we actionize that, right? We've heard that, but what do we do? What are some of the steps we can take to building resiliency?
I think resilience is what's going to sustain us moving forward, to be honest with you. You know, in my group, I had Isabel, Noah, and Susan. So I was talking to a presenter, a director of development, and somebody from Westchester. And we were talking about how, you know, what Erwin was saying, that we are in the same storm in different boats, but how we were in the same boat, but in different storms before the pandemic hit, you know, and how do we move forward with that? And you're talking about resilience, and it is the creativity of folks trying to come up with different ways of doing the same thing, how to deliver the same product in a different platform that is going to allow us to get, you know, on the other side of the tunnel. We all see the light, and, you know, for the longest time we were thinking that it was a train coming, but I think now we're looking at how do we come out of this darkness in a stronger position, and I think a lot of us will be a lot stronger on the other side because of the work that we have been forced to do, and you know, how we have been able to really be honest to ourselves and look at the business model that we have been at it for so long, and saying this just doesn't work anymore. You know, this just doesn't work anymore. And even though on the other side, we might be able to pick a few ingredients from what worked before, the recipe is going to be completely different moving forward. You know, we talked about the importance of networks and how do we, you know, come together as a group. Isabel was talking about that in terms of, you know, having a platform of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, we're going through this. I'm sure you're going through that too. How do we fix this together? You know, what are you trying that didn't work? So I don't waste my time doing that. You know, very quickly when the pandemic hit here in New York City, there was a group formed with a daily call at 3 o'clock. It's a daily Zoom call. Cultural at 3 is called, where you have 600 organizations from all over the city coming together every single day from Monday to Friday, at least at the beginning, to talk about, you know, how are we surviving? What do we need to do? And sharing information so that, you know, that nobody's reinventing the wheel here, you know. And out of that, there's a number of initiatives that came out. You know, one of it is Share the Mic, which was, you know, we at Limón, we hosted Juan Smallwood, who has a small organization in Brooklyn. And we brought her to our platform through social media and put the spotlight on her, you know. And interactions like that are the things that not only keep us moving forward, but it's also keeping us positive about the future, you know, and the things that we can do together. And that's some of the things that we talked about in our group.
Thank you, Juan José. That's all great to hear and really important. Margaret, what about you know, I'm going to come to you next. What about your group? What can we learn?
I don't know, Connie, did you take some notes?
I did. I put a couple of things in the chat.
You want to talk about it? Why don't you talk about it, and then I can fill in.
Okay, and here I am. Okay,
Thanks,
so that's some of the things that I spotlighted in the chat was the need to cooperate with other organizations and to reach out to people, especially I guess some of the paperwork and the hoops that people have to jump through in order to get to funding and that sort of thing, and also, you know, to share ideas about platforms and action items. You mentioned Save Our Stages, a Klobuchar initiative, that people should check that out. The holidays, that they might be a fruitful time to present to maybe present some archived productions or things that people would be wanting to see. I know people are putting out the Nutcracker and the Messiah and the Brandenburgs. And this might be also helpful in fundraising.
You know, one of the things a presenter is doing is they're going to do like the 12 Days of Christmas and repeat things that they had streamed, just to, you know, talk about end of the year, ask for donations, and don't make new things, but just repeat stuff that, you know, was good. Give the audience a chance one more time. I don't know. So it's kind of cost effective, and you could be a money raiser. You know, we did talk about how we all helped each other with all the paperwork that came in when we could apply for the different kinds of loans that were given, or the grants. And whoever's gotten a PPP, they should be able to, you should be able to file for your forgiveness. And if you have a PPP, I would file for your forgiveness just in case they use that as something that stops you from getting the next grants that are going to come. And it takes a moment or two to get all that paperwork together, but it's worth it to get it done. I mean, those are some of the things we talked about.
That's great.
May I ask a question? Is there is anybody able to help us get some kind of updates on what is happening with funders these days? Government, and we're pretty much in touch with our local funders, but government funders, private foundations that fund the arts, you know, significantly in New York State, because they're all trying to figure out what to do. And one gentleman said that their funder was, you know, funding things having to do with the pandemic, I guess. So there are, you know, and foundations change, you know, depending on what's happening in the world. But is there any way of finding out about this, or do we have to each individually go to every funder we can think of? Is that the only way?
I don't think there's a clearinghouse for this, Pam. I think
No.
I think you really have to, like, you know, can you do a Google alert? Do a Google alert, name the name of the foundation. If something comes out, then you'll get it. And that might be the easiest way for you to keep in touch with what the funders are doing.
I mean, we're doing it for ourselves, but I'm thinking to help everybody in the field, you know, some of whom, I mean, we're very fortunate. We still have most of our staff, but many of the organizations have maybe one staff left, if they're, you know, that they're holding on to, and they don't have a lot of time. They're trying to keep their organizations moving forward. I mean, it seems like an opportunity for maybe a foundation to do a study like that, which could be helpful to everybody, to the whole field.
I can share with you, Pam, that the foundation community has really stepped up, at least in New York City, when it comes to the arts. Howard Gilman Foundation, just to single some of them out, has been extraordinary. They actually accelerated the disbursement of grants. They came up with another round of grants, and recently they did a survey asking their grantees what was the top 3 things that they need help with.
Juan, were those based for artists, or are they based for presenters? I think those are artist grants.
Well, those were for organizations specifically, as far as the Howard Gilman is. You mentioned Margaret,
organizations,
the New York Community Trust also managing some of the grants. I see the Ford Foundation taking $1 billion loan to get money out quicker based on their endowments. Mellon also has been putting a lot of money out in the field.
And so has
Juan, from a presenter's point of view, I must strongly disagree with you. We are facing a big crisis. As I explained to Margaret, our mega funder, which is Department of Cultural Affairs, is 7 months behind in paying the money. And, you know, there is a lot of emphasis on social issues. Artists support the artists, like the Gilman Foundation, they'll support that. We applied for the community trust, got rejected. Our sponsors, corporate sponsors, will not give us the money because they want this particular guy of the corporation likes live performances and doesn't believe in streaming. So presenters are, Pamela, we are facing a crisis in terms of donations. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try, you should try, but it is tough out there. Just be prepared that the government agencies are falling behind. Our city is broke, and God knows if we get a funding from DCA for this season, who knows? We haven't been notified, although the council member from discretionary funding allocated a lot of money for the center. We have not seen a letter from DCA yet, what's happening for this season, and it's already December, and we normally get notified in September. So things are not so rosy in terms. One, I don't know, maybe some huge organizations are protected, but we've experienced great difficulty with funders.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from the group in our area, which is the Hudson Valley and the Catskills region. Yeah, a lot of those organizations are just on the brink. Just on the brink.
Many presenters are on the brink also. So, you know, we as presenters haven't been, I don't know, we need to, like Seth mentioned, we need to support each other and share this information.
Yeah, and Ava, thank you, because you've seamlessly given me the transition that I need, because this is an important conversation, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. But thank you for that transition. When this is over, maybe you know, we can develop doing some speeches together. Yeah, just to wind this up, and thank you all for being here in the conversation. I think the theme from what we've heard is whether, you know, we have to be united in our hopefulness, and we also have to be united in realistically addressing our challenges as a team. I don't think that, you know, any one group is more or less, you know, disenfranchised, so much as we all have these unique challenges. Presenters have their unique challenges, artists, agents, you know, are working for no money. Presenters have no budgets. You know, it's all connected. And so I think what I would hope to leave us with is that, you know, as we go forward into a new year where, you know, there is hope of a vaccine, and you know, there is a new administration coming, and there's talk of cabinet level position for, you know, to look at the arts. And by the way, Isabel has made some really important points in the chat that should be looked at, because she's clearly followed all of this closely. So, you know, it's not all good or all bad, but I think what this has done has increased our the spirit of collaboration, regardless of which boat you're in or which chamber of the heart you are. And so I think we have to pledge to each other to continue that. I hope that'll continue. I think it's the perfect answer to, you know, Pamela's original question, which is, as Margaret said, yeah, there's no clearinghouse for grants, but there's also no reason we shouldn't share information. Most of the big foundations are only going to give so much to each organization. So if I discover something, I'm not hurting purchase by telling everyone else about it. And we should continue to do that. So I hope that that's a hopeful message to leave us all with as we finish out the year. We've been so grateful for the comments in the chat. It's been really lovely. We will definitely be back with these in January, sometime actually around the inauguration. We'll do the next one, because we thought, you know, if we were all doing our work, it's the art's job to help us think about a moment by responding to it. And we would have all done a lot with our artists and in our halls around the election and everything else. So we will have a conversation about a non-political conversation about transitions and how we transition. So I hope folks will join us for that. I want to make a few thanks as we go away. First to our guests, all the guests that have come and really facilitated these conversations with us throughout this time, but Juan, José, and Erwin, and Margaret today. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
giving of your time, not once, but twice. I also want to recognize, because it's a great way for me to give thanks and also answer a question. You know, we have a great Arts Council here in Westchester, so I want to thank Arts Westchester, and Sue is here. You know, every municipality has a group like that that is there to help in some way, and they don't care if you're an artist, a presenter, an agent, a dance company, what you are. They're there to help you. So I encourage you to reach out to those folks. Our Arts Council is certainly a big reason why we're going to continue to upgrade what we're doing in the spring. So we thank them for that. And then I want to thank Ian, who's really the brains and the brawn behind this whole thing, and Mara, and there's too many to name, but the whole PAC staff, which has been absolutely amazing through this whole thing. I want to wish everybody safe health and holidays, and we look forward to seeing you in January.